Um, I have the pleasure of introducing a member of our friend circle. As I mentioned earlier, we have a group of patients who work really closely with us in thinking about what's important and what is needed in our patient care community. We talked about this being a journey, and without taking away any of Stacy or Aimee's time, I wanted to introduce Stacy Ross, who's here to introduce Aimee Sachs. Stacy.
Thanks, Dr. Chen. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Stacy Ross. I'm a member of the UCSF Friends Circle, and I am here to introduce to you our next presenter, Aimee Sachs. Aimee is a social worker and program manager at Share It, where she supports families and patients who are going through breast and ovarian cancer. And she's going to talk to us today about how to strengthen your caregiver and your support circle. We know, it's such a huge part of the patient experience. So we're really excited to bring this all to you today. And I want to thank Aimee for sharing this with us as well. Just a quick housekeeping note, we are going to address all the Q&A. If you have questions, we're going to bring them over to the breakout session at 12:15 Pacific. So feel free to continue the conversation there with us. And if you do have questions, just put them in the chat and we'll make a note of them and address them over there. All right, so take it away, Aimee.
Thanks so much, Stacy, and thank you so much for having me. So far, all the sessions today have been so informative and engaging, so I'm just really honored to be here. So Stacy summed it up really perfectly what I'm going to be talking about today. So let's get on with it. Oh no, it's not. Okay, there we go. So just quick about Share It, where I work. We are here for all of you. So definitely, feel free to get in touch at the end. I'll share my email and I'll put it in the chat as well. We are a Jewish organization, but we're absolutely here for everybody, regardless of background. So if you don't identify as Jewish, we are absolutely still here for you. We don't bring up the Jewish piece, but because the Jewish community is at increased risk, we can offer a little bit of added support around how spirituality and Judaism can, come into confluence with your cancer experience. We're also here for people who don't have a cancer diagnosis, but maybe only are interested in genetic testing or have a genetic predisposition towards these cancers. Ugh, I don't know why. Okay, there we go. So everything that we do is confidential, individualized, and free. We have lots of different support programs. You don't need to know what Share It does. Let me be the Share It expert. But these are, the programs that we offer. You can order any of these things on our website, or you can just get in touch with me and I can tell you which ones sound right for you after you tell me your story. We do have lots of webinars. That's the biggest change in what Share It does since COVID began, because we've always offered support over the phone and by mail, so that didn't have to change. But we used to do about 4 webinars a year, and in 2020 alone, we did 81. So all of our webinars are kept on our website. They're recorded and kept on our website. So if you ever see one that you're interested in, but it's not a good time, go ahead and register so that you get the recording. So, Share was basically founded based around the idea of social isolation, right? We know that cancer diagnoses are isolating, even more so in a pandemic, but connecting with others can make all the difference in the world. And there was actually a study at Ohio State that found that high levels of stress led to not only depression and all these other things you can see, but faster disease progression. And one of the factors they studied in limiting the stress was seeking social support, and really focus on the seeking. It's not just getting the social support, it's seeking it. If you seek it out, you are already telling yourself, I'm worthy of this and I can advocate for myself. And that alone is so powerful. So, once you get the social support, then what, right? The sense of community can be a double-edged sword. And it's hard to remember that you get to call the shots because, it can be so overwhelming when Once people know that you have this cancer diagnosis, you might be getting it from all angles. People are texting you or calling you or coming up to you and saying, oh, how are you? When you're not thinking about it and you're actually, kind of having a good time, and cancer was in the back of your mind, not on the forefront. And now other people are bringing it to the forefront all the time. So just remember that you get to define your community. You get to decide who you tell. Of course, once it's out there, you don't know who they're going to tell, even if you tell them, hey, please don't tell everybody. But when those moments happen, I like to teach people about the cancer-free zone. So let's say somebody comes up to you and they say, oh, how are you doing? How's treatment going? And you're not in a place where you want to talk about it. You're at the grocery, or you're at an event with your family or whatever like that. And you don't want to go there either because of the timing or because of the person. Sometimes people forget we're not actually that close. So I'm not giving you this information. You can always say, oh, thank you so much for asking, but right now I'm trying to have a cancer-free afternoon, or I'm trying to have a cancer-free evening, or whatever like that. Because if you say that, any self-respecting person will oh my gosh, of course, let's not talk about it. Let's talk about something else, or, go back and be with your family, or, they'll move out of it. If they don't, they're probably not somebody you want in your inner circle anyways. So it's okay to just say, I know, thanks, but I really don't want to talk about it right now. And some people worry that saying something like that will sound rude. I don't think you should worry about that because it doesn't sound rude. But, just know that you get to advocate for yourself in that way. Remember that it's okay to ask for help. It's really, really hard. I think it's hard for all people. And, I do believe that gender can be fluid. It can be a construct and all of that. But I do think that women are taught to be there for other people and not always to accept help. And so it doesn't come naturally for most of us, because I hear it from about 99.99% of Share It callers. Everybody says, no, I like to give the help. I don't like to receive the help. So it's not just you, it's all of us. So just know that it is hard. And once you acknowledge it's hard, it becomes a little bit easier. And once you know it's hard for everyone, it becomes a little easier. Some people even want to practice. If you're worried about asking somebody, do it in the mirror, do it while pacing around, your home. Maybe even do it with someone else that you are already getting help from. Say, okay, I need to ask this other person, like, let me just talk it out with you. Practicing might feel silly, but it's a really good idea. Also remember how good you feel when you help others, right? Now it's your turn, and maybe even reframe it in your head of it's actually you're helping them by letting them help you. So you're doing a good deed or a mitzvah, by letting them be the one to help you because you know how good it'll make them feel. Also, it's important to consider why they might not be offering. A lot of times they're so worried about saying the wrong thing that they don't know how to offer. They don't know how to say it. So, maybe they want to, they just don't know how. The worst thing that people say, I think, and it's something that I used to say all the time before I started working at Share It, and I learned my lesson, is let me know if you need something. I know we've all probably said it a million times. I've heard it said to me a million times. What does it do? It puts the onus on the person who's going through the hard time, right? To come up with what you need, to tell them, to also, imagine what they're even comfortable doing, right? Because let me know if you need something. Well, what if I ask you for something and it's not what you were wanting to offer, So I always tell people, if they're coming to me saying, my friend was diagnosed, my family member was diagnosed, what do I do? I say, be really specific with what you can offer them, because it puts the onus on them in a really unfair way to decide, what to ask you for. So, that can be so annoying to hear. Let me know if you need something. Also, their worry about, saying the wrong thing often just turns into silence. So, a lot of people think, well, they'll let me know. or, I just don't want to say the wrong thing. So I'm going to pretend like this isn't happening. And that can be really frustrating. Another thing that can be incredibly frustrating is the type of friend or family member who just always wants to look at the bright side. And sometimes that's helpful. Some perspective is absolutely helpful at the right time and in the right dosage. So you'll learn pretty quickly who the peppy coaches in your support system are. And sometimes it is appropriate to say to them, thank you. I hear that, but right now, I just can't get there in my mind. And I just want to sit here in my fear or in my anger or in my sadness. Can you sit with me in that? And I think when you actually say that, people will surprise you. They can do it. We've been conditioned by society not to feel comfortable talking about negative things without putting the positive spin on them. So if you can kind of say that to people, I know it's hard to say, but I actually think the more we all start saying that to each other, the better prepared our society at large, and the better prepared your support system will be to really help each other during hard times. Also another thing that a lot of people do is they share horror stories. I'm sure everyone that is here today has been there where somebody, you share something and then they say, oh my gosh, well, I heard this story, or, oh, well, my husband's brother's sister's best friend, had this happen and you wouldn't believe it was so much worse than what you have going on. And it's like, how is that helpful information? I don't want to hear these horror stories of other people, who have had worse things happen, because now I'm going to be kept up at night worrying that, oh, that's going to be my story. So, feel free to pump the brakes on those people and say, I so appreciate you sharing this, but it's actually going to give me nightmares. And you can kind of make a joke like that. And usually that will pop them out of, oh, wait, you're right. I shouldn't say that. And then unsolicited advice. I think this is the biggest one that I hear about all the time. One Sharsheret caller once said that she felt like her cancer was a new purse that everybody felt the need to comment on. And I've heard countless stories in my years at Sharsheret about this, but I actually experienced it myself before the pandemic. I got into an Uber and my Uber driver asked me what I did. And I said I was a social worker for people facing cancer. And he said, oh, well, I had cancer and I got through it. What cured me was eating bitter melon every day. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the thing that we always talk about that people do, is giving you this, crazy unsolicited advice that you don't want, and sometimes it's something, off the wall like that, or sometimes it's, oh, you have to talk to this doctor, or, oh, well, my cousin had this type of treatment. Are you going to have that type of treatment? And it can get very specific too. So one trick I really like to teach people is the bobblehead technique. So you see these old-timey bobbleheads on the screen. Think of yourself as a bobblehead in those moments. So with this Uber driver, he tells me about bitter melon. I didn't want to get into an argument with him. I didn't want to have to convince him. I didn't want him to have to convince me. So instead, I just said, oh, wow. And I just kind of did my bobblehead thing. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. That's really interesting. I'm going to look that up. I'll share that. And if it's something, more specific, like the other examples I gave, you can say, oh, thank you. I'm going to mention that to my treatment team. I'm going to mention that to my doctor. Because when you do that, you're basically saying, yes, sure, thank you. So it's a nice thing to say. So you don't have to worry about offending anybody. But they're not going to be in your next doctor's meeting. They don't need to know what the doctor is going to say about it, or if you even actually share it with your doctor. And so it just kind of shuts it down, and they don't need to convince you, oh, well, no, you really should look into this because it really will save your life and this and that, and it'll help with this. It just shuts it down, and it can be really, really useful, in that way. So we have a closed private Facebook group amongst our Share It callers, and this was posted by somebody this past summer. What's the stupidest thing someone has said to you about your cancer? I'll go first. Is that your real hair? And you can take a minute to just look at the different, when cancer looks good on you. Oh, I didn't think your hair would fall out. After my mastectomy, I was asked if my breasts would go back. What happened to mommy's hair? Chemo, what's it to you? Love that little girl. My mother said, if you took off 40 pounds, you wouldn't be in your situation. You certainly look different. And yeah, the worst was I thought people lost weight while on chemo. And she said, I really wanted to say, and what's your excuse? I kind of wish she had. But I'm sure everybody could put things into the chat that made your head spin, that people have said to you too. So, if you have people offering help, how do you make sure that it's useful? Because, sometimes you don't want to have, more meals than your freezer can handle, so a good idea is to create a running list. So you can open up a note in your phone, or a piece of paper if you're more old school, but I like to do a note in my phone because I always have my phone with me. So if I notice, oh, we're almost out of toilet paper, or, I just heard about this, date on the calendar that I'm going to need a ride, to this thing, or my kid has this thing happening. I always have my phone with me, so I can always add it to the list. So create a running list of different things you might need, from all of those examples that I just said, items you need, places you might need transportation to, things for your family, different types of things like that, whatever you might feel comfortable asking somebody for, so that when they get in touch and they say, let me know if you need something, our favorite question in the world, you can say, oh, you know what? I have a list on my phone. Are you going to Target anytime soon? And I know for me, I'm always looking for an excuse to go to Target. So, if you said I need toilet paper, or paper towel, or, whatever like that, I'd probably take a trip for you, but I might not know to say, hey, I'm going to Target. Is there anything you need? So, having that running list takes some of the guesswork out of it. It makes the timing a lot, easier, because if somebody's saying, let me know if you need anything, and you can answer that right then, that's a lot easier than 2 weeks later picking up the phone and calling them or texting them and saying, hey, you had said, let me know if you need anything. Would now be an okay time? That's going to be harder for you. Might not be harder for them, but that will be harder for you. So if you have the running list, it's a really great tool. There are lots of different ways to keep people informed. People are going to be texting you and calling you, and that can be really exhausting. So, having a point person, whether it's your spouse or a friend or even an adult child of yours, who can kind of take those questions for you, and either when somebody asks you, you can say, hey, I'm so exhausted. Thank you so much for asking, but can you get in touch with so-and-so? That's one option. Or you just tell so-and-so, hey, this person reached out to me, please get back to them, and that's maybe a little more seamless. There are websites created to help you with this. Websites like Caregivers and Men Together have the ability for you to have a blog, which either can be filled out by you or your point person, so that you can choose what you're willing to share with your nearest and dearest. And either you email it out when there are updates, or they can check, once you give them access to it. They each have kind of different abilities. So they're both blogs, but Caregivers, you can also set up a meal train or a care calendar for things like transportation or walking the dog or taking the kids to school or something like that. Men Together is very cool because they have a cancer registry. So like a baby registry or a wedding registry, they cultivate a list of gifts that would be helpful, whether it's, anti-nausea pops, or, chemo beanies, things like that. They they basically have like a list. You choose what you want to add from that list onto your cancer registry. And then if somebody says, I'd love to send you a care package, or, I'd love to do something for you, you can say, oh, well, if you'd like, you can check out my cancer registry and send me something, that would be useful. That's a lot better than getting, a pair of fuzzy socks from every single person you've ever known. Like, you don't need 15 pairs of fuzzy socks, though they are really lovely. The registry kind of takes that guesswork out of it. Also, there are websites like Caregivers, and there's like, I think even mealtrain.com, or there are lots of meal train websites. You can set it up through a website. I know lots of children's schools set up meal trains, communities like, churches and synagogues set up meal trains a lot. Coworkers set up meal trains a lot. It's a really good idea to, if you have a lot of people offering meals, to actually have someone set up a meal train for you, or you can set one up yourself. Because again, you don't want your freezer filling up, faster than you can eat through it. So having the meal train, can be really helpful. And it's not just for people who are willing to drop off a meal. It can be, people who live across the country can send something by Postmates, or they can even send, an Uber Eats gift card. It really can work with whatever your support system looks like. And it's also important to remember that we know that your needs don't end when treatment ends, but your support group might not know that. So it's okay for you to remind them, hey, I know that it might look like everything's fine now, but I'm still really feeling it in this way or that way, whether it's emotionally or, we know that cancer-related fatigue lasts for, 2 years post-treatment for a lot of people. So, but the general public doesn't know that. So it's okay to share that with people. Also, it's always important to consider what kind of help is appropriate from each person in your support system, and not only what kind of help they might be, equipped to give, but also what kind of relationship do you have with them, right? So there are some acquaintances who are going to really surprise you because maybe they've been touched by cancer themselves in their family, or maybe they're just really kind people who have, always wanted to get closer with you than they are, and they might really surprise you and step up in ways. But also sometimes some people who you thought were going to really be there for you are going to disappoint you. And it can be really frustrating to see, the people who you thought were going to be there, having a hard time figuring out how to be there and maybe just not being there. So think about, what kind of support is appropriate and possible from each type of person, and it feels silly to use this example, but it just makes the most sense to me. But I liken it to how I chose my bridesmaids for my wedding. Some of them I knew were going to be there for me when I was anxious, or I was, mad at my now husband, or I was freaking out about something my mom or my mother-in-law said. They were going to be able to be there with me and help me emotionally. Other ones, knew the best fun things to plan for my, bachelorette party. And then other ones, were gonna be there to crack a joke when tensions were high, or when I was nervous right before the ceremony, or, get people up on the dance floor. So it's really similar with all of this, you're gonna want some people who can be there for you emotionally, but if certain friends who are usually there for you emotionally can't be there now, maybe there's something in their history that you don't know about, that this is really triggering for them. I often say, try not to just throw them out, but maybe move them from a high shelf to a lower shelf. Maybe they're going to be really good at just going out to lunch with you and having a distraction, and, telling you about their dating life or something silly their kids said, or, I've been tasked before. I now offer for friends going through a hard time, do you want me to send you funny memes or funny GIFs or funny videos? Do you need puppy pictures, or, things like that? Sometimes people just need the distractions and the fun. So remember that that's okay. If that's all somebody's capable of, you can keep them in your support system, even if you were hoping for something else. So, the emotional help, the practical help, I've mentioned it a couple of times now, but rides to things, taking your kids to their after school program, or picking something up at Target or the grocery. And distractions and fun aren't just for you. Maybe it's for somebody else in your family. Maybe it's taking your husband out for a drink, or your partner, or your kid, needs to just get out of the house and let off some steam. When would be a good time to take them to the park? And a lot of people would love to do that for you. And it's a pretty easy, fun ask. And then, research help. I know that when I told my mom, that she could get my daughter a baby doll for her birthday, my mom researched the best type of baby doll. Okay. Most people might not do that. So if you have somebody in your life like my mom who loves to research and loves to do that for you, you can task them with certain things that you want more information about. Also, Sharsheret has done a lot of the research. So we know a lot of the resources, whether it's a resource we provide or a resource that I know, other people like American Cancer Society or our other partners in the cancer sphere, contact me if you need some research, and maybe I've already done it for somebody else, or for our network, and I'd be happy to share that with you. So, think about today, if there's been anything, that's really resonated or sounded like issues you've had with your support system. Also think back to before your cancer diagnosis. You've been through hard times before, who helped you then? What helped you then? And can you activate those same, supports now? And, consider, how you might want to proceed a little bit differently with activating your support system and encouraging them to actually be helpful. And please connect with me and Sharsheret. We are across all 50 states. Like I said, everything that we do is free and confidential and completely personalized to your specific needs and interests. Feel free to email me directly, or you can go through our website. If you're in California, if you go through our website, you'll be directed to me anyways. So you don't need to, like I said, become a specialist in what Sharsheret offers. Just call me. We'll talk about what you're going through, and I'll connect you to all the right resources. And of course, follow us on Instagram at Sharsheret Official. We post a lot about our programs and our resources and upcoming events and things like that there. And definitely join me in our breakout session at 12:15 if you want to continue the conversation, or just get in touch with me, because I know there are a lot of really great breakout sessions that you might want to hear from.
Stacy, do we have any questions in the Q&A that we should address?
There are a few. I've been copying them down for Aimee for the Q&A, but
if we have some time, I can go through them now. So I do just want to say that someone asked, about Sharsheret's area of expertise. We do focus on breast and ovarian cancer. However, if somebody, gets in touch about uterine cancer, endometrial, peritoneal cancer, we are absolutely here for you as well. We know that a lot of the emotional experience of those cancers are pretty, similar. So please don't hesitate. Our area of expertise, just because of how we were founded by somebody with breast cancer. So first we only did breast cancer. Then, because we started specializing a lot in talking about, the BRCA gene mutation, we started talking to people with ovarian cancer. So it's grown naturally. And in my 6 years at Sharsheret, we have talked to more and more and more people with endometrial cancer and peritoneal cancer and cervical cancer. So please get in touch anytime. I also talked to somebody with laryngeal cancer last week and stomach cancer last month. So any type of cancer, you're welcome to get in touch with Sharsheret.
Great, thanks so much. And I hope that we do get good attendance at our breakout sessions in a little bit. And I think that the conversations about cancers and the linkages between the cancers is really important too. So obviously, we don't work in a silo in gynecologic cancer. When someone comes in with symptoms, we're always trying to determine whether this is ovarian, uterine, and we also know that there are links between breast and uterine cancer as well as breast and ovarian cancer. So I think by nature, the work has to be broad and all-encompassing.
Absolutely. We never turn anybody away. We're here for everybody, regardless of anything on your medical chart.
Thank you,
so
Aimee.
much.
Thank you, Stacy.